let's be honest, there is nothing more frustrating than being sidelined from a game you love. When a nagging hip pain is keeping you off the course, it's more than just a physical problem, right? It's a huge disruption to something you're passionate about. So let's dive into this and figure out a real concrete path to get you back to that first tee.
And that really just says it all, doesn't it? This isn't just about some medical diagnosis. It's about getting back to a huge part of your life. So this whole explainer, it's designed to demystify what's actually going on in your hip and, more importantly, give you a clear strategic roadmap for your recovery. You know, to really fix a problem, we've got to understand it first. And your hip, well, it's a marvel of engineering, no doubt. But for a golfer, it's caught in this constant, high-stakes tug-of-war between two totally opposite forces. And this is it. This is the central conflict right here. Your hip has to be a rock-solid anchor, but at the exact same time, it has to be this high-speed rotational engine. Almost all non-traumatic golf hip injuries are born right here, in this fundamental struggle between stability and rotation. Okay, so let's quickly meet the key players inside your hip that are caught in the middle of this battle. We'll keep it super simple and just focus on what really matters for your golf game. First up, the basic hardware, the ball and socket joint itself. Its deep design is built for incredible stability. Think of it as the solid pivot point your entire swing has to revolve around. It's way more stable than, say, your shoulder. Now, lining that joint is this stuff called articular cartilage. It's a smooth, shock-absorbing surface. But here's the absolute kicker. In adults, this cartilage has a very, very limited ability to heal itself. Once it starts to wear down, that damage is pretty much permanent, which is exactly why we hear so much about wear and tear. And here is the powerhouse, your glutes. They don't just generate that explosive force in your downswing. The gluteus medius and minimus, the ones on the side of your hip, are the critical stabilizers. And let me tell you, weakness here is a primary cause of bad mechanics and injury, because it forces your body to compensate in all sorts of painful ways. So this chart really brings that core conflict into sharp focus. On one side, you need this stable pillar. On the other, you're demanding this incredible dynamic rotation. It's when your body fails to balance these two jobs that things so often break down, and you end up in pain. Okay, so with that basic anatomy in mind, let's look at how this all leads to the usual suspects behind your pain. Now, the symptoms can overlap a bit, but they often point toward one of three really common conditions. Here's a quick little cheat sheet. Just notice the big differences in where the pain is and what it feels like. Osteoarthritis is often a deep, deep groin pain. GTPS, that's usually on the outside of the hip. And a fracture, well, that's deep pain and you just can't put weight on it. But remember, this is just a guide. A professional diagnosis is absolutely essential. So culprit number one, osteoarthritis, or OA. This is that wear and tear we were just talking about, where the cartilage physically breaks down. For a golfer, this is just devastating. The stiffness and the bone spurs that can form literally block the rotation you need for a full backswing and follow-through. It just robs you of power and makes your lower back do all the work, which is another problem entirely. Now, culprit number two is a big one, GTPS. A lot of people think this is just inflammation, but it's often a degenerative breakdown of those crucial glute tendons from chronic overuse. When those stabilizing muscles get weak and painful, they can't hold your pelvis steady. And this is what leads to that classic sway or slide swing fault, causing inconsistent shots and, you guessed it, a vicious cycle of more pain. Okay, we have to pause here for a second and address a really critical question. Because given the age of many dedicated golfers, there is what we call a must-not-miss diagnosis that has to be on the radar. And that must-not-miss diagnosis is a femoral neck stress fracture. Look, if your pain is deep in the groin, if it gets way worse when you try to put weight on it, or if you have pain at night, this requires immediate medical evaluation. And this is crucial. A normal X-ray doesn't always rule this out. You might need an MRI. This is not something to wait on. Seriously. All right, so assuming you've been cleared of anything really urgent, let's get into the solutions. This section is your playbook. We're talking actionable steps, clear do's and don'ts for those two most common culprits, OA and GTPS. For osteoarthritis, the whole strategy is about managing the joint. The name of the game is reducing stress while improving function. So do focus on low-impact stuff like cycling or swimming. Do strengthen the muscles that support the hip. And don't try to be a hero and push through high-impact activities or painful twisting. And yeah, on the course, definitely use a cart.
Now for GTPS, the playbook is totally different. The goal isn't just to rest it, it's to improve the tendon's ability to handle a load. So the number one do is targeted progressive glute strengthening. But the don'ts are just as important. You have to avoid positions that compress that tendon, so don't sit with your legs crossed, and for goodness sake, don't sleep directly on that painful side.
Okay, so you have a solid recovery plan in motion. The final piece of the puzzle is actually getting back on the course. And this requires a patient, really strategic approach if you want to avoid getting hurt all over again. This is it, your 4-phase plan to get back out there. And the rule is simple. You only advance to the next phase when you can do the current one completely pain-free. You start with just daily life, then move to short shots at the range, then you graduate to playing a few holes. And that last phase, prevention, that's forever. Remember, this is not a race against a calendar. It's about listening to your body. And a huge part of that long-term prevention comes down to this number, 10 to 15 minutes. That is the non-negotiable time for a dynamic warm-up before you hit a single ball. Every single time. This wakes up your glutes, immobilizes your hips. It's your best insurance policy against going through all this again. So I want to leave you with this thought. An injury feels like a massive setback. And it is. But it can also be an opportunity. It's a chance to finally understand your body better, to address weaknesses you never knew you had, and to build a smarter, more intelligent approach to the game you love, so you can make sure you're playing it for many, many years to come.